Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something quite extraordinary. We're looking at a whole body of research, decades of claims, actually, about widespread telepathic communication.
Yeah, and specifically within a community that's often been, well, pushed to the margins. We're talking about non-speaking individuals, many diagnosed with severe autism.
Right. And the history here is pretty stark, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. For years, decades even, parents were told by, doctors, educators, the highest authorities really, that their children were essentially absent. The phrase often used was not in there. Just devastating feedback implying no inner life, no competence.
Imagine hearing that about your child, fighting against that belief, and then discovering something else entirely, something almost unbelievable.
Exactly. Finding out that not only is your child fully aware, fully competent, but maybe they can even hear your thoughts.
It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but the person investigating these claims is very real, very credible, Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell.
Hmm. Johns Hopkins trained neuropsychiatrist, former Harvard faculty, not someone you easily dismiss. And she's been looking into this seriously.
So the stakes are immense. If what she's observing holds up, it forces us to rethink everything. Disability, consciousness, communication itself. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, Dr. Powell's background is key here. She's got serious academic credentials in neuroscience research. She didn't just, jump into studying telepathy.
What was her initial focus then?
She was studying savants, individuals with these really exceptional abilities that seem to come out of nowhere.
Can you give an example? Like the classic musical savant.
Precisely. Someone who can play complex piano pieces perfectly, having never had a lesson. Or incredible mathematical calculation skills without training. Powell was looking into these kinds of unexplained skills, particularly in autistic children.
Okay, that makes sense. That's already pushing boundaries.
It is, but then things took a turn. As she studied these kids, enough parents started saying things that went beyond typical savant abilities.
What were they saying?
The recurring theme was, "Doctor, I don't know if it's just savant skills. I think my child might actually be reading my mind."
Wow. So that feedback directly shifted her research focus.
It seems so. It led her to design specific experiments to test this possibility. The course setup involved these non-speaking individuals, often using a letterboard or maybe an iPad to communicate.
Right. Assistive tech.
Yes. And she'd separate the child, the receiver, from the parent or teacher, the transmitter. Then Dr. Powell herself would generate random information, like numbers or pictures.
And only the transmitter could see this information.
Correct. The non-speaker's task was simply to type out what the transmitter was looking at.
And the results, this is where it gets significant.
That's putting it mildly. When asked about the accuracy, Dr. Powell reported rates consistently over 95%. She stressed this was, quote, statistically significant.
Over 95%. Okay, that's not chance. You can't explain that away easily.
Not statistically, no.
So the obvious question then is, if the data is that strong, why isn't this headline news? Why aren't major institutions pouring money into telepathy research?
And that hits the central conflict. Dr. Powell is very aware of this. Her findings fly directly in the face of the dominant scientific philosophy, which is materialism.
Materialism,
Yeah.
the idea that everything boils down to physical matter and energy. If you can't measure it physically, it doesn't count.
Exactly. It's the bedrock of most modern science. Telepathy, suggesting consciousness or communication might operate outside the known physical brain, outside measurable interactions. Well, that's almost heresy,
It implies something non-physical about the mind.
which is deeply uncomfortable for a system built on physical measurement. So getting funding, getting papers published in mainstream journals, it's incredibly difficult, regardless of how compelling the data seems. The paradigm just isn't set up to accept it.
So how does she try to bridge that gap? What's the next step scientifically?
Well, the ideal experiment, the one she really wants to conduct, involves using quantified EEG, or QEEG. It's a type of detailed brain imaging.
And she'd use it on both people simultaneously.
That's the goal. Scan the transmitter and the receiver at the same time during one of these successful information transfers.
Looking for what? Some kind of matching brain activity.
Precisely. A synchronized physiological signature. Some kind of measurable physical correlate in both brains that could potentially satisfy the materialist requirement for physical evidence.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Finding that signal could be a game changer.
Absolutely.
So faced with all this accumulating data, these reports coming in from families all over the world, Georgia, Mexico, India, people reaching out saying, this is happening with my child too. The decision was made to try and capture this on film, right? To create undeniable proof.
Yes, the researchers felt the need for a truly bulletproof test. Something meticulously documented, filmed, and controlled to address every possible skeptical counterargument.
And this leads us to a specific case.
It does. The case study of Mia, a 12-year-old non-speaking girl from Mexico. Her mother, Ilana, and cousin Sofia had discovered she could communicate quite profoundly using an iPad or letterboard.
Was there any initial check before they set up this big controlled test?
Yes, Dr. Powell did a preliminary verification over Zoom, even remotely. The results were striking.
What happened?
Dr. Powell sent a random 3-digit number via WhatsApp to Mia's mother, Ilana. Then she sent a complex word. Ilana kept the phone face down, away from Mia.
And Mia.
Mia typed both the number and the word correctly,
Mm.
instantly. 100% accuracy right off the bat.
Wow. And did Mia offer any explanation for how she does this?
According to her family, yes. She apparently typed that she has memories going back to being in her mother's womb and that she actually prefers communicating mentally with Ilana.
Prefers it. That reframes everything.
It really does.
Okay, so they proceed with this big film test in Glendale. Describe the setup. How did they make it bulletproof?
They went to great lengths. A completely new, unfamiliar location for Mia and her family. Custom-bought props, including a special mindfold blindfold designed for total light blocking.
And they checked the blindfold?
Oh, yeah. A skeptic on the film crew actually put it on himself to confirm you couldn't see anything. They used thick partitions to physically separate Mia and Ilana.
Yeah.
Multiple cameras, 5, I think, covering every angle.
Any other controls?
Yes. They brought in an independent, neutral translator and observer, Rebecca, who is an animator by trade. Definitely not someone invested in sci phenomena. And the test material itself was rigorous.
The numbers.
Randomly generated 3-digit numbers, from 100 to 909. The idea was, even getting slightly above chance consistently in this setup would be remarkable.
But the results weren't just slightly above chance, were they?
Not at all. Let's focus on that Glendale test.
Mm-hmm.
Mia, wearing the blindfold, behind the partition. She correctly identified the random numbers Ilana was looking at. Every single time.
Every time. How many trials?
Over 20 successful trials in that session. Numbers like 698, 956, 121. Perfect identification. 100% accuracy.
Okay, at 100% over that many trials, under those controls, chance is completely out. It forces the question from, is it happening, to how is this possible?
Exactly. The consistency was undeniable. But then they pushed it further. They wanted to see if it was just telepathy reading Ilana's mind or something broader.
So they designed another test.
Yes, the popsicle stick test.
Yeah.
Still blindfolded, Mia was given a mix of different colored popsicle sticks. She had to sort them into piles, matching colored containers on the table.
And crucially, Ilana wasn't intensely focusing on the sticks or colors at that moment.
Right. Ilana wasn't the direct transmitter in the same way. Yet Mia sorted the sticks perfectly by color.
How does she explain that? They must have asked her.
They did, and her typed response was profound. She didn't say she saw through her mother's eyes. She said she could see everywhere.
See everywhere.
Mhm.
That's not telepathy anymore. That sounds like clairvoyance, direct perception.
It points towards that, yes. A very different kind of phenomenon.
And there was one more test that really sealed it for the observers, right? The book test.
Ah, yes, the book test. You had brought a book Mia had certainly never encountered before. Ilana just flipped it open to a random page.
And
Mia, still blindfolded, correctly typed the page number. Then she spelled out specific words pointed to on that page. And then, maybe most remarkably, she identified a picture on page 26 as a pirate, even spelling it out in Spanish pirata.
accessing detailed visual and textual information from a closed book she couldn't see or touch.
The impact on the crew filming this was apparently quite significant.
Yeah, the cinematographer, Michael Agnisanti, was pretty open about it. He said the consistency just wore down his skepticism. He felt he had to accept it was real. And Rebecca, the neutral translator.
Her conclusion was striking. She basically said this experience showed her that there is something at play that we as humans don't see because we're busy with our senses. A fundamental shift in her perspective.
But it wasn't all success, was it? There were conditions where it didn't work.
That's also very important. They tried the number tests again, but this time with Mia's father acting as the transmitter, looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
It didn't work. Mia couldn't identify the numbers or pictures when her father was the one looking at them.
Okay, wait. If it works with the mother but not the father, doesn't that feed the classic skeptical argument? Facilitated communication, unconscious cueing from the parent she's connected to.
It absolutely raises that question, and it's a valid one to consider. However, Mia's own explanation adds another layer of complexity.
What does she say about why it didn't work with her father?
She typed that for her ability to work, you have to believe in her for her to do it.
Belief. So it requires a certain kind of connection, maybe an emotional resonance or trust, not just proximity.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
It suggests the phenomenon isn't purely mechanical or physical, but perhaps relational. It depends on the dynamics between the individuals involved. That complicates things considerably.
Beyond the controlled tests, what are the real-world implications for families like Mia's? It must turn daily life upside down.
Completely. Think about it. Privacy disappears. How do you keep secrets, even simple ones like birthday presents or where you hid the candy?
Or more serious things, worries, private thoughts.
Exactly. Parents grapple with how to educate a child who might perceive things far beyond the curriculum, how to manage their own thoughts and emotions, knowing they might be constantly overheard. Alana mentioned she initially worried people would think Mia's abilities were somehow dark or frightening.
And Mia herself reported other unusual perceptions, too.
Yes, she claimed to experience synesthesia, seeing colors associated with letters or numbers. She also apparently journaled about having very early memories from around 6 months old, which contradicted an earlier medical diagnosis she'd received.
And her brother observed things, too.
Her younger brother mentioned that Mia sometimes seems to see people who aren't physically there, and apparently laughs sometimes while looking at seemingly empty parts of the room.
It paints a picture of a very different perceptual world.
Radically different, it seems.
So we have these incredibly compelling observations. Meticulous controls in the Glendale test, blindfolds checked, partitions, cameras, neutral observers, consistent 100% accuracy on complex tasks. Yet, Dr. Powell maintained that mainstream science wouldn't accept it.
She was adamant. She stated clearly that even those tests, despite the rigor, would not be accepted by her scientific peers.
And it comes back down to that philosophical barrier.
Entirely. Materialism. The results challenge the paradigm too, fundamentally. Because there isn't currently a known physical mechanism, a measurable energy transfer they can point to, the system is essentially designed to reject the findings. There's just no framework, no funding, no institutional support for seriously investigating things that seem to break the known rules.
It's a frustrating impasse. You have direct, repeatable observation on one side and a rigid adherence to a specific worldview on the other.
That's a good way to put it.
And that frustration, that experience of seeing something undeniable yet knowing it would be dismissed, that led to the next step, didn't it? Asking Dr. Powell if there were cases even more compelling than Mia.
Yes. Even with Mia's 100% accuracy under controlled conditions, the question became, is there someone out there, another candidate, whose abilities might manifest in a way that could provide that elusive, measurable, physical signature, someone who could bridge that gap?
And that question apparently opened up a whole new phase of the investigation.
It did indeed. The search for the ideal candidate to potentially satisfy the demands of mainstream science.
So what does this all mean?
Well, the implications, if these observations are validated, are just immense, profound. We're talking about challenging decades of assumptions baked into medicine, education, psychology, assumptions about consciousness, disability, human potential itself.
It suggests we might have profoundly misunderstood, even dismissed, a whole population of individuals.
Potentially, yes, attributing their lack of typical communication to a lack of inner consciousness, when the reality might be far richer and stranger, limited only by our current tools and beliefs.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a really challenging thought. Considering the sheer volume of reports Dr. Powell gathered, the consistency seen in cases like Mia's under tight controls, witnessed by neutral parties, what's the bigger intellectual gamble here?
Is it riskier to tentatively accept phenomena that currently defy our scientific measurement, based on compelling observation?
Or is the greater risk dismissing those consistent, powerful observations simply because they don't fit neatly into the box of our current scientific understanding? It's something to really mull over. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.